Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today we are going to be talking about a developing east coast low and then two potential tropical lows, one of which could impact Queensland in around 10 days' time. All of that plus more coming up in your weather forecast update for April 2nd, 2024. So overnight, some pretty big thunderstorms lashed Victoria and Tasmania. Up to 100 millimetres has fallen in areas of Victoria, just outside of Melbourne actually, and I did say that Melbourne's east would cop the least amount of rainfall. Well, it turns out they actually ended up copping about 15 millimetres more than most of the other wettest places around the Melbourne metro area. So certainly quite a bit of rainfall fell around there, that's for sure. And this rainfall also extended down in towards Tasmania, where communities such as Burnie and Penguin have already picked up over 60 millimetres, with possibly a little bit more rainfall on the way today. Now, this strong cold front, which brought some very heavy rainfall, is going to turn into some thunderstorms for northern New South Wales today. You can already start to see that thunderstorm line firing up around Dubbo and extending over towards Orange, and that will move into the Sydney metro area and impact areas around Sydney and Newcastle from around lunchtime today. The rainfall should really be picking up in the western suburbs of Sydney, probably from about when this video drops, but yeah, picking up in the eastern suburbs and then up towards Newcastle later on in this afternoon, and then maybe into this evening as you get further up the coastline towards Tamworth and further inland towards Lightning Ridge. Now, these are the precursor thunderstorms to what event is going to be unfolding in Queensland, which is going to be driving a developing east coast low. So the weather is tying in beautifully over the next 5 days to each other. Now, as we play this forecast model run through, this is your weather forecast, by the way, and keeping track of time on the bottom part of your screen as always, you can see that those thunderstorms do start to fire up. They're nothing crazy from this afternoon and the evening into Queensland. I do reckon that they will be stronger than what the forecast models are suggesting, and they will be extending along a distinct line. It will be very apparent on where the trough line is on satellite imagery tonight, that's for sure. But I do believe that the eastern weather is underestimating the possible intensity of these thunderstorms just a little bit. The GFS and the Access G3 model, however, they're definitely not on board with strong thunderstorms either, so we'll just wait and see. But I do reckon that there is a chance that one or two of these storms do go severe, just considering the intensity of those storms that are moving through New South Wales and that move through Victoria overnight. Now, playing this run through, there's nothing special that happens through Tuesday and then into Wednesday, but it will be Thursday night when we do start to see these storms really pick up pace from a developing low-pressure system across southeastern Queensland that will likely develop across the top of Roma down towards Moree, very far inland from the coastline, mind you. It'll be further inland than Toowoomba, sort of towards St. George in southeastern Queensland, but it won't really have access to coastal air. That doesn't matter because it's going to have a very humid air mass by the looks of things, and it will still be drawing in some moisture from the coast on the southern side of the system. And by Thursday afternoon, this low pressure area is really starting to pick up pace, firing up some very strong thunderstorms all throughout southeastern Queensland, including the Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast, Brisbane included as well, by Thursday evening into Thursday night. So probably some decent falls will occur across southeastern Queensland then. They will be sporadic, but they certainly will be decent, and the rainfall will also be picking up from Thursday evening as well for locations in northern New South Wales, right down towards the New South Wales Victoria border along the coastline. So Tuesday, probably some storms here and there. Wednesday, mostly dry for New South Wales. And then from Thursday afternoon, it is just going to be rain, and more rain. And it really picks up Friday for Sydney. I'm going to go out on a limb and say up to 100 millimetres can be expected to fall in and around Sydney on Friday, and possibly a lot more inland as well as you get towards Lithgow and Penrith. You're probably looking at up towards, I would say, maybe up to 200 millimetres to fall on Friday. It is going to be a very wet day, that's for sure. There will be some flooding, especially flash flooding in and around Penrith. Certainly a good top up to the dams, and the first really decent rainfall that they have had this entire summer season, even though that we are heading into winter now. This is still semi-tropical rainfall because of its nature from Queensland. So yeah, it will also be quite humid, that's for sure. It'll be very windy, probably going to be seeing wind gusts in excess of 100 kilometres an hour as this system moves towards the coastline. It's going to be tracking parallel to the coastline and probably just a little bit further inland, so it's not going to be like a classic east coast low. It's going to be a very moist air mass that's bringing in a bunch of heavy showers and thunderstorms down ashore. So to call this an east coast low is quite wrong, but it will also feel like an east coast low just in the conditions that it brings, the damaging winds, the massive seas, and also the very heavy rainfall that this system will be bringing. it will feel somewhat like an east coast low, but it won't be behaving like one. It should actually move all out of Sydney by around Saturday, by early morning or into the early afternoon. There'll be a couple of showers on the backside of this system, and also in the big inflow feature that's going to be out to sea by the looks of things. So still a further 15 millimetres could fall on Saturday or so. Definitely looking like Friday is going to be the wet of the days at this time. And then, yeah, Saturday the rainfall becomes a lot more concentrated for Victoria. In, I believe that's called Gippsland or Gippsland in Victoria. That's where the rainfall is going to become a lot more concentrated. My geography in the southern parts of Australia around Victoria, New South Wales is not good, and it needs a lot of work, which I'm hoping will be rectified in the coming weeks as I track more systems down there on this channel. Now, it will be a very weak low pressure system by the time it gets down towards Tasmania on Saturday afternoon. And then into Sunday, but it still will be driving a little bit of rainfall ashore on the east coast around St Helens and down towards, I think, Coles Bay and Bicheno and Swansea and those communities that are on the east coast of Tasmania. They could see up towards 15 or 20 millimetres on Saturday, extending into Sunday, and also drive a little bit of rainfall on the backside of the front for the west coast of Tasmania as well, before a front gets to that area by around Monday. And boy, oh boy, is Tasmania actually expecting just a little bit of snow next week. The Eastern Wave daring to suggest up towards 15 centimetres could fall next week, but we'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, it looks like this low pressure area fully draws away and just leaves a couple of thunderstorms and showers here and there by Sunday. But yeah, I mean, the forecast for Friday does look quite nasty indeed. The rainfall really picking up in the early morning hours around Sydney and Newcastle, probably peaking at around, I would say, lunchtime or just after lunchtime local time. And yeah, it does persist into rush hour as well. So if you are commuting from work Friday evening, it is going to be a very wet drive, that's for sure. Make sure you're taking it slow, taking it easy, not getting into any kind of road rage that would make the road conditions even more dangerous for other drivers, because this is a very significant amount of rainfall. And the first big rainfall of the season generally collects all of the oil off the road. It floods all the oil out of the road, and it lubricates the surface even more, so your braking capacity will be even lower than normal because of the oil that will be on the roads from this significant rainfall. So again, just make sure you're taking extreme caution on the roads from Thursday evening throughout Friday and then into Saturday as well. And those roads hopefully will dry out Saturday afternoon. Same thing with soggy Sydney, because they're going to be picking up a healthy amount of rainfall over the next 5 days. By the looks of things, up towards 250 millimetres inland around Penrith. Penrith itself maybe 175, Sydney about 130, 140, down towards Wollongong 130 as well, and then up towards Newcastle slightly less, but still 100 millimetres of rainfall all throughout the Sydney metro. Expect 100 millimetres to fall, and it will predominantly fall on Friday. 90% of the rainfall will fall on Friday, with just a little bit on the back end of the front on Saturday from some heavy showers, but they'll be much harder to predict in terms of their whereabouts and whenabouts. So yeah, it's certainly a wet weekend, a wet end to this week coming, and a wet weekend for Sydney. Probably quite exciting though, because again, they haven't had any really significant rainfall for quite a while. So I bet there'll be a few Sydney-siders watching this video that will be very excited. And then up north as well, the Gold Coast could pick up towards 150 millimetres, and locations around Byron Bay up towards 180 or 200 millimetres as well. Looks like Coomera will be the wettest spot in Queensland though, if you do take out far northern Queensland. But again, it just doesn't look like the rainfall is going to be happening for far north Queensland at this time. The forecast models just don't know what they want, and that leads us very nicely into the next part of this video, which is the tropical cyclone forecast. Now, I'm going to stay really zoomed out because these systems don't deserve 5 minutes of my time each. The West Australian one is the one that I have been most confident in saying will form into at least something, and we're really starting to see just a little hint that this system will be developing about now. You can see quite a bit of thunderstorm activity located offshore from Melville Island around Darwin. This is what we call a tropical wave. Think of it like a wave of energy and thunderstorms that moves counterclockwise around the world. It moves from east to west. And in this case, we're seeing this little tropical wave, which was located in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and this wave of energy is now starting to move towards West Australian waters, and this is what's going to become our next tropical load there. But we're going to play the run through and see exactly what's happening across the tropics. The West Australian system has a high degree of confidence in happening, but the other forecast models are just spitting out systems in random spots with no real reason to at this time. So looking at the ECMWF model, it takes us until about Friday to really see something start to develop. Friday evening, we do start to see this little swirl happening south of Ende on Indonesia. And then, about by Saturday, we're seeing a fully fledged tropical low. And again, it really does try and get itself cyclone status, but it takes it right until next week to get cyclone status. So this is going to be in an environment of very hostile conditions, high wind shear, low mid-level humidity, and it's going to be a small system, so it's going to be even further susceptible to those hostile conditions. And it takes it until about Wednesday to really wrap itself up properly before it kicks the bucket Wednesday evening and dies off Thursday. You might also be able to notice a little spin up in the Gulf of Carpentaria. We'll touch on that in just a second because the GFS and the Axis G3 have something completely different in store. Both the GFS and the Axis G3 are not overly keen on the West Australian system. The GFS does favour its chances as a tropical low, which is giving me a degree of confidence in saying that this will happen. But again, it's really just hard to tell. The models don't really want anything out of these systems. In terms of impacts of Western Australia, you can kind of forget it. It's not going to be bringing any impacts ashore. Maybe just a couple of showers here and there up towards the Kimberley region, and also a couple of showers from an inflow band or two that might brush over Barrow Island or areas around Karratha, Port Hedland and Exmouth on the West Australian coastline. But once again, nothing crazy. And also nothing crazy in terms of rainfall across Arnhem Land adjacent to the Arafura Sea. It looks like they're remaining high and dry up there as well, but a good few spots of rainfall just offshore. So again, a very difficult forecast to be making on these Gulf of Carpentaria / Coral Sea systems. I did say next weekend we're likely going to see rainfall increase around the Cairns area associated with the moisture that these tropical lows will be bringing in. Well, that's been pushed back to probably next Saturday / Sunday, and it's going to be a little bit further south as per the Axis G3 model. Again, I wouldn't be betting my money on a rainfall event at this time, and considering it's going to be a non-severe rainfall event where we only see maybe 100 or 150 millimeters fall, I'm going to give up trying to forecast it 6 or 7 days in advance. I think this week has taught me that I can't do that right now, and I'm just going to read the forecast as it comes and give you guys up there about 2 or 3 days notice on a weather event like that, because it is just way too uncertain at this time for me to be calling shots on the weather up in far north Queensland, just considering the amount of variables in the forecast. Now, what's this you're seeing here? The Axis G3 has just decided to spit out a tropical cyclone for the Coral Sea. Again, I don't see this being a possibility. If the other forecast models jump on it tomorrow, which I don't think that they will, then I do believe that it will have higher chances. But again, the GFS doesn't want anything whatsoever. The ECMWF wants just a little bit of energy to occur in the Coral Sea. The Axis wants a fully fledged tropical cyclone though, so the models really don't know what they want at this time. And you'll also be able to notice the GFS wanting a cyclone over the top of Darwin. I don't see that as a possibility either. And again, 10 days out, very difficult to tell at this time. We're just going to have to wait and see. The tropics are very unpredictable right now up across northern Australia. The only system that I have confidence in calling is a West Australian one, and I just expect a tropical low to form out of that this weekend, which may persist into early next week before dying off around Tuesday or Wednesday. But up in far north in Queensland, I've got no hope in forecasting. I did read a comment yesterday about people, or me trying to forecast the weather 10 days out in advance. Now, the reason I can do that, and I can do it to some degree of accuracy, in fact, I have nailed forecasts before quite frequently. The reason I can do that with a degree of accuracy is because I don't use one forecast. I use a blend of all three weather models on windy.com, the ECMWF, the GFS, and the Axis G3, which are the three most reliable forecast models for the Australian region. And they give me a very good idea of what is actually happening. When you take a blend of that and you include factors of consistency and so forth, which you kind of learn as you do it, you learn through making mistakes this time, then it gives you a very good understanding of what's actually going on. And considering I've been looking at weather models on Windy for 6 years now, I do feel like I've got a very good understanding of what the forecast models do actually have biases towards and what they have biases against. And as such, I've been able to make some very good forecasts, especially for far north Queensland, which have some of the most unpredictable weather in all of Australia. The Bureau of Meteorology reckons that they have a 20% success rate in getting long-term rainfall forecasts right up there, and I believe them. I wouldn't be able to do any better than that, because far north Queensland is a horrible place to be forecasting for. But you guys have great people up there, and every day I get to read heartwarming comments about how appreciative you guys are for the forecasts, especially up in far north Queensland. So thank you so much for watching. It really does mean quite a lot. Now, I did also promise that we'd take a look at possible snow down south for Tasmania and so forth. Well, it looks like next week, come around Monday or Tuesday, there's going to be a couple of strong fronts that move through. And brush up against Tasmania. And look at this, the ECMWF model expecting what's there, up to 20 centimetres of snow for areas around Lake St Clair and Cradle Mountain on Tasmania. There's some pretty significant snowfalls there, and they're very widespread as well. Nothing around Hobart, definitely nothing in Hobart, that's for sure. That's kind of a once-a-year sort of event. But again, maybe half a centimetre or a centimetre for Mount Wellington, so snow lovers, a very light dusting might be on your way. I mean, already the snow line really starting to move significantly further north, and New Zealand also starting to cop some snow at this time as well. So it really is looking like winter is very, very close at this time. And it's great to see, because winter has to be everyone's favourite season down here. No one likes baking in a hot summer down in Tasmania, and definitely not in Western Australia either. So down in Southern Australia, winter's certainly got to be the favourite season, that's for sure. The Axis also predicting a little bit of snowfall, but again, just a light dusting, and the GFS predicting a very light sprinkle of snowfall, and I don't think the icon is calling for anything over the next 5 days either. So there is a bit of model support for some snow down here, and we're just holding out for snow. I think I'm more excited for a bit of snow than you guys, to be honest. I love forecasting it, and I really can't wait to cover winter events on this channel as well. And I'm thinking of launching another channel to look at more specific locations across Australia. So if you do want to see that as well, please do let me know in the comment section down below. But anyways, that is all from me. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names on screen right now. Thank you so much for your support, guys, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.